How much training do you do for your health and well-being versus how much was for marathon training?
I used to train about 100 to 130 miles a week. So people often ask you, you're a runner, you run every day. And you're like, well, I run 12 times a week. After I retired for maybe like 4 or 5 months, I was still running like 10 miles a day for 6-7 days a week. So I'm like, what am I doing this for again? And then you have to kind of scale it down to whether you want to run 5 miles or 4 miles and not feel guilty about it. It was very intense, pretty intense to be able to just be on the grind day in, day out, and, get ready for competition, get ready for, get into therapy or massage, or you're always on the go because that time crunch is important to do that first run, recover and eat, and then do for the second run. So it's constantly thinking until you put your head on the pillow, you're constantly thinking, what can I do to better myself?
This podcast exists because I love talking to people and I love going deep. The purpose is to plant seeds of inspiration. We enter a space of vulnerability and relatability. And what you realize is that we are so much more alike than we are different. To quote Ram Dass, we're all just walking each other home. And this show is just one step.
I'm Danica Patrick, and I'm pretty intense. Welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. Today on the show, very timely, we have Meb Keflezighi. You might know him, you might not. If you do, it means that you probably run. He is an insanely accomplished runner. He won the Boston Marathon in 2014. He won the New York City Marathon in 2009. He has a silver medal in the Olympics in 2004. He went to UCLA. He has 4 NCAA championships, 22 national championships, was nominated for 4 Olympic teams, and he's written 2 books. So if you're into running, you've probably heard of Meb. Also, it's really cool when they have their bibs and they're big time, they basically have their name on their bibs. So you've maybe seen him. He comes from a country called Eritrea. I mean, it's just a story of attrition. It's a story. I mean, what more parallel could you make other than that story of attrition and the fact that you have to have so much attrition to run 26.2 miles for a marathon? He just is a really good human and has some really lovely stories and some great perspectives on just life itself. And of course, some really good tips on running. So I hope you enjoy the show today. I hope you pick something up, either inspiration or perhaps some running tips for your next marathon. Okay. I'm wondering where I've caught you in your day, because I heard you say I know how much dedication you have. I mean, the fact that you're 46 and still doing what 26-year-olds maybe can do is insane. But I know that you have a lot of dedication and that your whole day is around rehab, the training, the body and stretching and all the things. So where have I caught you at this moment today?
Today, well, I usually take my wife takes the kids to school, and I just went for a little exercise post-retirement. I'm in Tampa, Florida, and then spending some time with, people ask me, what do you do besides running? And what's the other hobby? Is spend time with family and friends. So I was just having a nice coffee, traditional Eritrean, Ethiopian coffee, which is usually not a Starbucks 30 minutes. It's usually a couple hours. So I'm at the halfway mark, and I said, I got to go talk to the Danica. So it's great to be with you.
What has that transition been like for you?
The transition from retirement is great to spend time with family and friends, but at the same time, sometimes we're so much into routines and goals and tight schedule. It's kind of like you feel guilty.
Really?
To be like, well, I should be doing this, because when you're a runner, whether, like you said earlier, whether you're doing therapy, whether you're doing massages, whether you're doing second run or cross training or weightlifting and all that stuff, your mind is taken away. And what you're eating and what you gotta have to prepare for or get ready for the next day, for the next week, for the next month, or for the next race. You're constantly thinking, but now it's like, you were doing so many things. Now it's kind of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think it's been harder for you physically or mentally how much do you train now? I guess because training now is just, your well-being as opposed to for a specific goal, which I'm actually curious, first off, how much different is that? Like just for the regular human, right? That goes, how much training do you do for your health and well-being versus how much was for marathon training?
Danica, this is kind of crazy, but I used to train about 100 to 130 miles a week. So people often ask you, you're a runner, you run every day? And you're like, well, I run 12 times a week. So that puts it in perspective. But now, as a retirement for health, after I retire for about maybe like 4 or 5 months, I was still running like 10 miles a day for 6-7 days a week. So I'm like, what am I doing this for again? And then you have to kind of scale it down to whether you want to run 5 miles or 4 miles and not feel guilty about it. Because before it was like my cool down after a 3-mile warm up, a hard workout, and then a cool down. Sometimes I do 3 miles, 4 miles, maybe 5 miles, so I can take the afternoon off to let the body recover. Now I'm running that much. What I used to do in cool down, I'm doing it for my health. So it's kind of different because it was very intense, pretty intense to be able to just be on the grind day in, day out, and get ready for competition, get ready for get into therapy or massage, or always on the go, because that time crunch is important to do that first run, recover and eat, and then do for the second run. So it's constantly thinking until you put your head on the pillow. You're constantly thinking, what can I do to better myself? And especially when sponsors and people are counting on you, you don't want to disappoint them, because you drive the car, but there's a team behind the team, and I run the 26.2 miles, but there's a team behind the team. So you don't want to disappoint them. You want to give them 110%. And sometimes it goes really well, and other times it doesn't, because mishaps happen or mistakes happen. But you should be grateful that you put 110%. So retirement now for health is good, because mentally it's difficult. Physically is okay, because I run 4, 5, 6 miles. I'm completely happy with that. Whereas 5, 6 days a week, if I could do it 7 days.
Your body is good with that, but your mind is saying
your mind is like
lazy.
Exactly. Sometimes you see people, for the first time in my life, people are doing kind of more than I'm running. They're like, hey, I'm going to take the day off and not feel guilty. And they're like, I had a friend in San Diego. She's like, I'm not going to say who, but 2 of us ran and this guy did not run. Usually it's the other way around, saying, hey, can I get a pacer on the bike, or can I get somebody to give me fluid and things like that? You're working very hard, but now it's like, okay, I need to be on a chill mode. And then, so mentally that perspective has been different, but also I have to teach it, kind of relearn how to calm down and not, because for my life, for me, being an immigrant, education was important. So when I was at UCLA, until I get that UCLA degree, I was nonstop 8 o'clock class for 5 years, just go, 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 go. And maybe I missed 3 times or 4 times besides traveling from classes. So, and now you're going to be a professional athlete for 17, 18 years. That was intense to be able to just be on the grind day in, day out, because we didn't have seasons. It's not like 4 months and then you take off. Been a distance runners, you're constantly in the year round. So you kind of feel like a little bit of burnout. So you got to slow down and reteach yourself. It's okay to breathe. It's okay to not be your mind wander around to the next and the next thing.
Yeah. Do you remember where or what happened when you kind of hit that spot? Because I think a lot of people can relate to the fact that there's change, that doing something differently for a lot of people, it might be training more, but it's still a similar challenge emotionally and mentally. And so what happened? Was there like a breaking point or a moment that you remember going, okay, something needs to change? And was there a breakdown, or was it possibly some kind of slow progression?
Slow progression. I got to credit my wife, Jordanos, and she just says, sometimes you just got to breathe. You worked hard for the rest of your life. Now you need to kind of chill. But then another person, Cassandra Carr, she's part of the owner of the San Antonio Spurs. I remember she says, retirement is different. You're just doing something that you used to enjoy. It doesn't mean you stop doing everything. It just means you got to find something passionate that you are excited about. So I remember I was in San Antonio and having Howie, my brother and manager, he was there, and we were having at her house, just kind of relaxing, having a tea. And she says, Meb, retirement is just doing something different that you love. And you didn't have to stop but now you can you can go on your schedule what you want to do versus completely stop. And if you just try to completely stop, it's not great for anybody. It's not good for you mentally and physically. But if you do a little bit of something and a little bit of another thing, eventually passion will take over.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. It's like anything. And there's like even some level of like an addiction almost to it where, you don't just, I mean, cold turkey's a little dramatic. And so, having kind of that fade and that new transition and creating new habits is, part of the process of weaning off and sort of shifting your daily activities. So what were some things that you did that you always wanted to do? Maybe it was food, maybe it was travel, maybe it was, I don't know, drinking alcohol, because all I know is training for this marathon. I'm like, in the last, because the marathon's a couple of weeks away. So I'm like, I mean, I have one glass of wine now and I feel terrible from it. I feel like my recovery is horrible. My sleep is garbage. There are things that, really change when you have that level of intensity of doing something. So I'm curious what those things were that you thought about maybe while you were training and in that intensity that you thought, man, if I had time, or man, if I didn't have to do this in the morning, I would do it.
It's for me, getting up early in the morning, whether it was before flight or training schedule, you got to get that run in before going to the next flight because it might be to Europe or might be time zone changes and things like that. So I said, people want to meet. Hey, I'm recently moved to Florida a couple of years ago. They're like, you want to meet at 5:30, 6 o'clock? I'm like, nope. I don't want to set an alarm. I did that for college. I did that for my workouts. I don't want to do that. But someday I think I have a sweet tooth. So I love having a sweet tooth. And now I don't, when I was my birthday, I remember when I was at Mammoth Lakes where I used to train in California at altitude, my kids and wife used to have a fruitcake for me. I cannot have sugar because I was in the middle of the season getting ready for. So now I just say, I see dessert, I'll have it maybe 2 or 3 times a day. I don't hold back, but it's not to go cold turkey. Also in terms of exercise for me is, it's part of my life. It's a lifestyle for me. It's not running was my passion. It was my career. But at the same time, now I just go run whenever I want to. And then people, being a distance runner is beautiful because you run into people who appreciate what you have done and they want to run, whether it's 400 meters or half a mile or a mile with you. I say, if you can keep up or whatever, it's fine. Or you chat and if somebody wants to be competitive and they pass you and you want to get your competitive spirit on, it's like, okay, it's time to move that speedometer a little bit faster.
I mean, you guys are running at like a sprinting pace. I mean, your average per mile is like what nobody runs one time. So it's insane. So when you say 400 meters, I'm like laughing, thinking that's not far. And then I was like, wait a minute, that might be all I could last with you. So my only one goal in my life, as far as a bucket list goes, was to do a marathon. That's all I wanted to do, was just do a marathon. And I don't know why that was it. Like most people want to go somewhere, whatever, but I wanted to punish myself for 26.2 miles. And so, and who's kidding? I love the challenge. I love the mental challenge. I love the physical challenge. I love having a goal and training for something. So I have a lot of questions about this whole training thing because it's crazy. Like I thought to myself before, I could probably just, because my mind is really strong, I could just go run it. Like I could just go run a marathon. I'm not saying I'd be good at all, but I could go run 26.2 miles because my mind is strong enough. And I almost didn't want to train, but then I was like, okay, fine. You've got this training schedule. I'll do it. And it was about, 3 or so months long. And so let's start on the macro level. Like, was there ever a lull? And then we'll get a little bit more finite because the people listening that, are especially people, there's going to be a lot of people listening that love running and they're going to get it. And they've done a half or they've done a full maybe. So this stuff is going to be so interesting. But from a macro level, do you ever take time off in the year when you were competing?
I'm going to tell you this. When you run a marathon, the next day is a forceful time out. So, I hate to break it to you, but, for us, it's you train so intensely, and when you run a marathon, your quads will be sore and you're going to be in pain. And then it's like, it's a forced time out, and for me, I take about a week off, maybe 2 weeks off, depends how I recover. And then gradually just start walking, but make sure you stretch and things like that. But yeah, it's not a season, say like football, basketball season over and get them out. It's like spring marathon, fall marathon, and a lot of races in between. So the only time you take time off is after the marathon, because you definitely need it.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Okay, good. That's good to know. I'm literally thinking to myself, make sure you take a week off after. If Meb takes a week off after, I should take a week off after, because my mind would probably tell me like 4 or 5 days later, oh, I should probably do like a flush run or something. Like I should probably just kind of run like 3 or 4 miles and just real easy, but I'm taking a week off thanks to you. So then what was the actual amount of time that was condensed down to specifically for the marathon? And I know it's a little tough because like a lot of people will just do a random marathon and, they need a lot more training to prepare for that one. So you have kind of an all year sort of conditioning, but when you're getting that last little bit specifically for a marathon, how long does that last for you?
The marathon training?
Yeah, like right at the end, because you're always training for a marathon, right? Not always, but
right. I mean, people often says you need 16 weeks to train for a marathon or 14 weeks of training for a marathon. It all depends on the condition of the person. And somebody can pull it out in 8 weeks. Some people can pull it out in 6 weeks. It depends what their previous fitness was. If somebody started from scratch and then, hey, let's walk around and whatnot, and you could use the 12 to 16 weeks. But I think for me, since I always been fit since collegiate years and professional, and the least amount I have done is 8 weeks. And, I was injured, recovered from the injury. And then, you don't lose much in terms of fitness, but mentally you lose a lot because you're not day in, day out, or weekly, you're not doing the exercise. So you have uncertainty. Can I make it? Or I might be able to make it. But if you let the fitness come to you, great things happen, positive thinking. Whereas if he says, oh, I only got 8 weeks and panic attack, I got to run my long run next week. No, you don't need to do that. Let the long run be the celebration of 26.2 miles. Now, how do you get, whether you're doing 5 miles, 6 miles, 12 miles, 13 miles, accumulation of running, get into that race day without being setbacks or without being injured, is going to be okay. But if he says, you know what, I got to get 5 weeks out, I got to do my 20-mile run, and you're only doing 6, 7 miles, you mentally defeating yourself already because you have this perception. But if he says, hey, I just got to be smart, my previous conditions, whether I've done marathons or half marathon, will carry me through this race. I just got to be healthy and be mind focused and look at that date, that ultimate date of the marathon, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. What were some of the collection of modalities that you would use to stay sharp? I know you talk about strength training and stretching and all kinds of things like that. Like last night, I was laughing as I'm like, researching and listening to you talk about things. And you were talking about doing stretching after a run for a while. And I'm like laughing to my friend her and I ran 16 miles. And I was like, we're not stretching, Aaron. Like we should Meb stretches afterwards. We're not even stretching. We're just putting ourselves in these Therabody boots. So what are the things that you do that you would really attribute to being like the foundation of your ability to keep going?
There was a great coach from UCLA, John Wooden. He says, it's not what you do in practice in 2 hours, but how you take care of yourself. So the 16 miles training is checklist Danica, but hydration is important. Normatec or complex electronics. If you're feeling something, you rather just take care of it. Prehab instead of rehab, because you don't want to wait until you get injured. So you have to think about the small thing that says, hey, I'm in sync with this. 16 miles, I felt great. Now, how can I recover? And whether it's tomorrow or then 2 days, I can get a little bit running. So you have to do, I use personally Generation Ucan. As soon as I finish my hard workout, whether it's long run, intervals, or tempo, I have a packet of Ucan with a 10 ounce of water. That immediately is helping you recover. And then obviously the stretching is important. Not many people do this, but it's 5 minutes of your stretching. That allows you not to get injured, but also helps you recover for tomorrow, for next day, for next week. But if you just say, hey, we got done 60-mile run, let's just get on the car and go, you already got intense a little bit, your hamstring is tight, your calves are tight, your Achilles is tight, then you're prone for injury. So the stretching is not 10, 15, 20 minutes, but 5 minutes of stretching the core muscles that would help you.
Which ones are the core? Like, which ones are those? I mean, for
yeah,
the quads, tell me the ones you do.
The quads, the hamstring, the calf, the Achilles, and the adductor and adductor. And those are the essentials. Some people stretch their hands is fine, but the one that's going to carry through 26.2 miles are the legs. So, and the glutes are very important. You want to be able to just, because you've been using the same muscle for 16 miles, the same pace, you want to change it up a little bit. Stretching is, when you're watching TV or you're hanging out, comfortable with your friends or family members, it's okay to get on the carpet and do a little bit of stretching, because you get ready for 26.2 miles at the Boston Marathon. There's an excuse for it. So it's just wonderful to be able to do those small things. But hydration is important while you eat. Obviously, 60-mile run, you need protein now to be able to just help your body recover from the shake. For me, I'm a chicken and beef kind of guy, but some people are fish or other plants like beans and things like that, whatever.
What was your diet like? I mean, like, what was I'm really curious, your overall, you're talking about chicken and beef and things like that, but then even just before you take the Ucan, during and after, which I'm totally going to talk about. Could you break it down into macros? Did you have 30% protein, 30% carbohydrates, 40% fat, or how did it break down?
General idea, you'd have 60% carbohydrate and 30% or so of protein, and then 15-20% of fat that you like to have. But at the same time, depends when you do it. So I'll walk you through my preparation. The night before, I will go for a 60-mile run or my long run. I would like to have spaghetti or red sauce meatball would be good to have, and salad. If you don't like pasta, you can have rice, brown rice preferably, and chicken or fish a little bit. But once you try that in your long run, you want to duplicate that on race the day before the race as well. But the morning of workout, like a long run or intervals or tempos, is very important. For me, I like to have bagels. If I'm not at home, if I'm at home, I like to have hambasha, which is homemade Eritrean bread. It's like similar to Hawaiian bread. I like to put almond butter or honey in it. And I like to have maybe half a banana, just put a little potassium. I like to have tea every day, but if I'm doing intense workout, then I will have coffee.
Good. Yes.
If you like coffee, that's a great one to have. Okay. And then during the race, you have to get to know your body a little bit. You got to be your own science to be able to just say, an hour before my workout, I have to eat, or 2.5 hours or whatever it is, because you don't want to have an issue during the workout. But for me, it's like 2.5 hours or an hour and a half I can get away with. And then during the race, I would just have the age of Ucan or electrolytes. Every 15, 20K, I would like to have that if I'm doing a long run or tempo run. Tempo run is race pace or a little bit faster than race pace, and long run is kind of slower than race pace. You just there time on your feet. It's not even, the pace is not that important. Just got to be time on my feet to get ready for 26.2 miles. So
then.
So yesterday, if you did your long run, I know you have great support system, and sometimes on my long run, 20 or longer, sometimes I'll go a minute per mile slower, and just time on your feet. You just put in the time on your feet, and then the tempos be race pace or a little faster. You combine that with the long run and the tempo run race pace, you're going to be fine for 26.2 miles.
Oh, God, thank you. You just put that together. That's where the tempo is where you get the speed. And then the
long run is in
time on your feet is where you get the distance. And then they kind of merge together. I've been literally running every time I'm like, well, I wonder if I can do sub 9 for this whole time I run this long run. Or I'm like, it might be a shorter run. And I'm thinking to myself, can I, run an 8:30 pace? I know, don't laugh at my times. Can I run 8-minute miles for this, And so anyway, wow, gosh, I really made that mistake. And I wonder if other people do too. I never really put that together, that the tempo is for the speed and the distance was for the time, and they come together.
Yeah. And then, we have intervals that you can do a little bit repeats, where there's maybe 3 times mile repeats, a lot faster than race pace. Like you're saying, maybe it's 8-minute pace or 8:30 and whatnot, and start 9-minute pace, go to 8:45 and then 8:30, and then maybe finish up an 8-minute pace. And guess what? With that 8-minute pace, with the lower long run, maybe at 10-minute pace or 9.5-minute pace, it comes together to give you 8:10, 8:15, or 8:40 per mile, and it comes together. It's beautifully does, especially when you it's a work of art when you put it all together, week in, week out training, and when you have to do a beautiful 26.2 miles, and it's beautiful when it comes together.
Yeah, I mean, so the way that, and then during is like a thing, so getting that down and figuring out how often, and do you ever drink? Like I'm carrying like a bottle of water. I've got a packet with all kinds of like stuff in it where I can pull out something that I need. But I ended up learning that every 4 miles was how often I would take a Ucan. And that seems to work for me. And I would just drink water, generally like every mile I would take a big gulp. So how often was that? And Ucan really is great. Like I tried a few others and it's so much easier to take. And then I got a technique down where I was like, oh, you just roll it up and then it all goes in pretty easily instead of trying to hang on to it. So there's like lots of little things that go into the speed and the transitions and the accessibility of things. So how do you break it down in your race? What do you take during the race?
So being elite athlete, I guess we have a little bit of an advantage because special drinks are waiting for us every 5K. So every 3 miles, usually my Ucan is waiting for me, and I would have.
There's someone there? There's someone on the course for you?
Yeah, sorry. This one is a little advantage,
You're a pro. I didn't know. That's cool. Okay. And then is it a cup or is it a bottle?
So we have a regular water bottle that is already mixed with our electrolyte in there.
Yeah.
Each table will have, there's about maybe 30 or 25 elite athletes. So it'll be Meb table 3, first one on the table 3. So every 5K, 10K, 15 miles, I look for table 3 and not first one on the table. And there's 4 or 5 times, got to be kind of coordinate. Like if there's any similarities, this is where your racing comes in, because you got to be able to just maneuver in a way. Hey, I got to go to table 3. I got to pick out the first bottle. And then after you get that, you got to get out of the way. And so a lot of mishaps can happen.
A lot of passing, a lot of cutting and jiving.
And then
do people get a little shitty? Like, do they, okay. That's part of the game.
I got to shake my head for that one. And then, some people will take your drink because they miss their drink.
What?
So you got to, and I have missed my drinks, or somebody has taken, and then you got to tap them on the shoulder. Hey, you got to sprint and catch after something. Hey, that's mine. I'll drink first. If I have leftover, you can have it. But other than that, it's
that's the equivalent to like
intense time.
That's the equivalent to taking someone out, right? Like you have to go like, give me that. I'm punching you out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of, tactically, that's where tactics happen. So, sure. And we call it fluid station. And then at that point, some people will get their fluid and they will sprint. So this is where they sprint. So they don't allow you to drink. They carry their water for 400 meter or 500 meter sprint while everybody's drinking, because when you're drinking, you can't really swallow it. And they make that move and, sprint. And then, when you have digestion or whatever, system's not going, they sprint. And then eventually when they come and slow down a little bit, when they want to, they can drink. So sometimes you have to be prepared to just hold on your water, carry it for 400 meter, quarter of a mile, or even maybe half a mile even. So, because if everybody's surging, you don't want to get stuck drinking, and bad stuff happen when you're trying to go a lot more faster than usual.
Yeah. So, do you mix in, so it's the electrolytes? Do you take any of the Ucan energy packets like in the packet, or is it already in the fluid?
So marathoning is an experience. For me, on the beginning of my career, I would tape it, the gel or whatever, but now I use Edge from Ucan, but you tape it and you can, you use your mouth to kind of tear that thing up, and then little roll come into in your mouth, and then you would have your fluid next to it, so you can gulp it down. But I learned this from my good friend Ryan Hall, who is a great runner and a fellow teammate, Mammoth Lakes, and also in the Olympics. He goes, "Why don't you just put it in the pack, in the water bottle?" So it made sense. I would put my electrolyte or gel. You can Edge in the water bottle, and then when you get to the 15K, so I don't have every water bottle with that. I have electrolytes, and then I have caffeine or edge on 15 and 20 and 25K, just because if you miss one, if you miss 15, you don't want to be until 40 to not have it. So you want to be able to just put it next to each other.
Got it.
And then I would shake it as much as I can before I could gulp, and then it kind of mixes, and then you have it all at once. That's one of the things that I learned later on in my career. But you have to train with it, obviously, in training. So kind of practice. So because you don't want to have it too often, because you don't want to have bloated stomach, but you want to have the right amount. And sometimes just put that edge UCAN in it, split the drink into 2 water bottles instead of having it all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. So you take little breaks during the week. You don't always consume it. It's like part of like really intense training as opposed to regular training.
Absolutely. Yeah. When the rigorous kind of, you're trying to duplicate what the race going to be very intense. So you
ever use real food? Do you ever use real food in your other training?
No. I have a friend of mine that in San Diego that says that, hey, I should just give you a lounge pouch, whatever it is, so I can just do a sandwich and have a sandwich when because for us, that's why I use UCAN. You get an hour before the run, and then I'm there for 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. I don't need a lot to carry, but I think to have it maybe 45 minutes before the gun goes off, it can carry you for 2 or 3 hours. But no, I never tried real food, but it'd be funny. Maybe as a retired athlete, I might have to do that down the road.
Oh, the sandwich can carry you for 2 or 3 hours, or the UCAN Edge can carry you for 2 or 3 hours?
The UCAN Edge can carry you for 2 to 3 hours.
Well, I feel like a really amateur athlete then, because I take one every 4 miles, which is like every 35, 40 minutes.
But, you don't want to feel if that works for you, everybody's different. If you have tried it and works for you, stick with it. But eventually, hopefully we'll get you into this community of running, of marathoning. When you do the other one, you kind of experiment with it. Maybe do it every 5K, every 3 miles, and see how that, take a good measure of the fluid, maybe 6-7 ounce when you can at that 5K, and then carry that to 10K and then 15K or every 3 miles. That can, kind of inside will help you, I think, tremendously.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating. I'm learning so much to how to become a professional runner. In the meantime, I'm just going to carry all my things with me in a little packet. When you came across the UCAN products, what was it about them, and what made you partner with someone like UCAN?
I got introduced to UCAN in 2009, and Dr. Krista Austin is the one that introduced me to it. I'm a dietitian and exercise physiologist. And I remember, just hearing the name UCAN, and to be able to win the New York City Marathon, you can put your mind to whatever you want. And it was just an incredible name, but also, and then I said, let me try it out. I always try the product and see if I agree with me, and I like to have it. And the story behind Jonah, how it started with the family settlement, and his parents have to wake him up every 2 to 3 hours to feed him because of glycogen storage. And that won my heart. And to be able to, that's how it started. And then I became the first athlete they signed. And it was just, it wasn't even the superstructure was amazing. I think when I won New York, I was traveling a lot, but making a lot of appearances, and I wasn't running a lot. But, I was taking the UCAN shake, and people said, how many miles are you running? You're looking fit and strong. And, I think it was just timing of it. I was able to help me be lean and strong and consistent energy. And ever since, I never looked back. I used the Edge. I also use the shake afterward, and 3 times a week, intervals, tempos, and long run. It's the first thing went to my system, and has done the longevity it has gave me is my secret weapon with UCAN. Just be able to just share it with others now. If you haven't tried it, it's the time to try it, to help you be the best that you can. And I feel fortunate to be working not only with the company, but the partnership and support that I have gotten from the whole family, the community of UCAN is amazing.
Yeah. Amazing. It's just magic when something finally works. And especially on top of it, when you find a company that, has integrity and purpose, it's like a match made in heaven.
Absolutely. And I feel that way for UCAN. It's just been, if the word goes around and you hear it, being part of the sport is, hey, I'm Meb, I travel UCAN. And that's, it's working, because it's not like you endorse it and then you didn't hear about it. But being a distance runner is like, hey, Meb, I want to meet you because Ucan has worked for me. I used to have GI problem, but now I use Ucan. I'm good with it. And hey, how else do you use it? And it's just wonderful. Hopefully, when we were in Boston, we started with 20 people at in 2010. Now we got, 400, 500 people knowing about it and sharing in the running community. And I heard you've been using it, so it's incredible to be able to see people use it. And it's just a wonderful product, and the people that are sustained with it is just also incredibly equal.
So then the strength training, I think, is maybe the other aspect, because for myself, I remember I was doing an 18-mile training run, and I had done some deadlifting and, basically like a lot of posterior work, glutes and hamstrings a few days before the run. And I was still a little sore, and I went running. And another thing I want to ask about is heat, because I live in Arizona. So Scottsdale is very hot. And so I was running at like 6 to 9 a.m., 6:30 to 9:30 in the morning. And I know you're so fast. But it's very hot here. So, I wear, actually you can see the tan line probably from my watch, but I wear a Garmin, and, it was peaking at like 109 degrees. And so, between having posterior soreness from strength training, as well as then the heat, which those are two separate things. It was a disaster.
Strength training is important, obviously, the ligaments and the muscles need to be strengthened to carry you 13.1 miles or 26.2 miles. And, you just got to be, just like a strategy race, you got to strategize when to do them also, because you don't want to do them after you're doing 60-mile run, or, on the easy days, you want to be able to do it. Sometimes you got to change your long runs or your intensity because you do not feel like you were up to it or happy to get the best out of yourself. So that means if the core training is the next day, you don't want to do the long run or intervals and then go stick to that routine. You have to be flexible to be able to change. But, as much as, weight, your body weight is good, or the bars, you just want to get those muscles kind of limbery and really tensile up a little bit to be able to help you carry the duration. I think, the Dyna disc or the medicine ball is important. Doing the curls or hamstring curls and the medicine ball is very important to be, instead of going to a gym and be able to lift big weights, because 26.2 miles is a long ways, but at the same time you want to be able to just nurture those muscles as healthy as possible, and do it in a fun way, and push-ups, sit-ups, core important is very important. I can stay here and talk to you all about that stuff, but I have a book called Meb Keflezighi that tells you all about the strength training and conditioning, cross training, because as a distance runners, sometimes we are prone to injuries, and you have to prevent it if it becomes big problem. So taking a day off, going for a swim, or taking a day off or going on an elliptical ride is important. Those things, instead of, hey, it's on my schedule, I got to do it. Don't try to be to the book, as much as you can. You try to, but at the same time, if you have to know what is best for Danica to be able to say, what, coach or team, I need to take a day off today because I just sleep well last night. So that 16-mile run, we're going to do it tomorrow or the next day, versus say forcing it and sticking rigid to it. It can prone to be a little bit of a problem. So you got to be flexible, but at the same time, strength training is just important to be able to get to your posture. I don't know if you wear sunglasses, but you got to wear your glasses hopefully during the run as well, so that way, because we get fatigued, I use my Maui gym to be able to just, when I'm running, because when you fatigue, your head goes down, but if you have sunglasses, this for the whole time, so it won't slip. So that's another trick that I'm sharing with you.
Oh man, actually that was something witnessed, is that I kind of run a little like chest down, and I really try to concentrate on that after it was pointed out. But I don't wear sunglasses, and I probably will wear a hat, but I never wear a hat either. My eyes are not very sensitive. And so I think to myself, I don't really squint that much, but it is probably some level of a drain. And it's also a little bit of it's almost like wearing some, people will tape their bodies in areas that are sore. It like reminds you to have the right sort of posture, as you said. So interesting. I don't know if I'll wear sunglasses because I'm almost down to the wire, and I don't know which ones wouldn't bother me. But in the future, if I were to ever do a marathon again, I will train with sunglasses for that body position reason. That's a great one.
Even though, you don't wear glasses, but you got to constantly think, shake their hands, like, just let them loose every 5K or every 4 mile. Just let, because, you're running like this, just let them down, the blood flow come in. But also thinking about, you're not wearing sunglasses, but to say, how's my posture? You got to think, okay, how's my posture? Am I staying tall? Just imagine you have an egg on top of your head. You don't want to tilt it, whatever. You just want to be tall. And that's going to help you. Just do that maybe every 10K or something. You didn't have to think. You do it 4 or 5 times, and assuming you'll be okay.
I mean, you have so many different modalities. You became such a, insanely accomplished, highly tuned athlete, and you took it so seriously. But I want to go back to how you got that way, and, hearing your story about growing up in Eritrea and living without your family from 5 to 10 years old, and then moving to Italy. I mean, you've had quite a path. And I'm wondering, like, first off, what is your family like? How did that go? So you got separated at 5 years old, and were you back together with them when you were 10?
So, and thanks for bringing that up, Danica. In Run to Overcome, my autobiography, I discuss about how I was born in Eritrea, and my dad has to flee from Eritrea to Sudan because he was wanted by the Ethiopian soldiers. So he was going to get prison or killed. So my mom has to kind of have a hard talk, just tell him, hey, you might want to take this chance. It's not like you get on a flight, but he has to go over 225 miles in the wilderness. And sometimes he has to spend the night in the trees, on top of the tree in the branch, because if he's on the ground, there's hyenas, lions, scorpions, and other animals that can take his life. So he survived it. But, my parents had 5 kids and 1 on the way. And they tell him to say, if it's a girl, call her Bi'imnet, or if it's a guy, call him girl, call her Amina, which means with belief. That one day, if I make it a safe land, I will look after you. So I did not see my father from the age of 5 till I was 10. And my mom and I, brother and sisters, grew up in a third world country, no electricity, no running water, where we have to fetch the woods to have fire so we can cook meals, and we go 2 to 3 miles to get that. And in fact, one day I was in the vicinity of another border, and I got caught, unfortunately, in trying to get as much woods as I can, and I got caught, and my mom, we have to spend the whole day there, and my mom has to come and bail us out with about a water bottle size of grain, to like a bail bond almost, to allow us to escape. And then you got to go 2 to 3 miles to get to the water out of the well, and carry it on yourself or put it on a donkey to be able to do that. So, but fortunately, my dad made it, and didn't see him for 5 years. And there was great people who helped us escape from Eritrea. Dr. Brindisi, his boss, and Letta Michael, who's my sister Ruth's mom. I have half sister Ruth, and they worked together to be able to escape. And I remember there's so many generosity people in the world. And my dad asked his boss if he can lend them. This is 1986. If he can lend him 10 million lira Italian money at the time was $6,000 US. And he says, is that to save one person or to save everybody? And my dad said, with the money that I have and worked, it would save everybody. And Dr. Brindisi, his boss, said, come back Wednesday. And he came back on Wednesday, and he gave him 10 million lira cash. And he says, this is not a loan, it's a gift. That's how we got saved. And that's how we made it from Eritrea to Italy. And we lived in Italy for 1.5 years. And I saw TV for the first time as a 10-year-old. I did not understand how people fit inside that TV. So I went behind the TV to see if they were there. And that's humble beginning. But, fortunately, we came to the United States on October 21st, 1987. And we worked hard, and, we were...
How old were you then?
I was 12th grade. I'm sorry, a 12-year-old in 7th grade. So my oldest brother had the most difficult because he was placed we didn't speak English. So we were just placed by our age. We didn't have my brothers had a little bit more education than I did. But so you are 15 years old, you're going to be in 9th grade, or you're 12-year-old, you're supposed in 7th grade. But luckily for me, they put me in elementary for 1 year just so I can learn English. And the following year in 1988, I was in PE class in San Diego, next to the San Diego Zoo. If you're ever there, check it out. Roosevelt Junior High Middle School. And then he said, if you run hard, you're going to get A or B. Make sure you take this mile run seriously. He told the whole class. And my parents always expected an A for them class. And I have two older brothers who ran for Roosevelt Junior High, and they had the Roosevelt Junior High Mile Club shirt. And I wanted to be like them. And so when the coach says go, I just ran as hard as I can. It wasn't around the track 4 times. It was around the baseball field, around the softball field, and then go to the middle of the campus, down the ramp, and finish up the ramp. And to get the t-shirt, you have an A. To get the t-shirt and an A, you have to run 6:15. I end up running 5:20. And he couldn't believe it. He's like, he called the high school coach, and he says, this guy's going to go to the Olympics. He said, you're going to go to the Olympic. But I'm like, did I get a t-shirt?
You're like, wait, do I get an A and do I get a t-shirt?
Yeah, I didn't know what the word Olympic meant. I'm just really learning my English. So I have no idea. And I went and asked my dad that evening. I says, what's the Olympics? And he says, what'd you do? What happened? He's like, Coach Duke Lord says I'm going to go to the Olympics, in my native tongue, obviously. And he goes, well, the Olympics are every 4 years, and they get peace and harmony. Different continents and countries get together for a friendly competition. And the rest is history. After that, I got my t-shirt, my A, and I started making friends, high-fiving people. And, my picture was in the gym. And, they said I was known as the fastest 7th grader.
That would be a fact. Do you think that when your teacher said, if you run fast, you get an A, that was planting some kind of seed within you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it says I believe giving 110% every time and each time. And my parents expect the same thing in school. They want to say, hey, this is the land of opportunity. Make sure you work hard. In fact, my dad woke us up at 4:30 a.m. before 7:30 o'clock clock on weekdays to learn English. There's a dictionary. So yeah, I want to get that I badly because my parents said so. And then when Coach Duclair said, you're going to get an A, I said, what I need to do? And I wanted to run as fast as I can and try to aim for that 6:15, but I surprised myself and his expectation as well. And when he saw that in his clock, he couldn't believe it. He's like, he called the high school immediately, like, this little one is really good. And, that's how I was introduced to get an A or t-shirt. But at the same time, I feel that's when my God-given talent was discovered. And after that, I never looked back. I think sports is great to be able to give you confidence and, give you camaraderie and then also the friendship that you make. I was a very shy and timid kid, and that kind of breaks that shell for me.
Was that your moment, or was that the moment other people knew? Do you remember when it hit you that you're like, I'm good at this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, definitely help others kind of make friends, I guess you say, give you high fives on when you're going from one campus to another. But for me, that was like a boost of confidence. It's like, oh, this was fun. I wasn't like, I never do this one again. It was just like, this is cool. And, the easiest A I ever got. and the rest is, I was able to just carry on that. And then, it had helped that two oldest brothers ran for that school and then for San Diego High. And then I'm like, oh, when I was in 8th grade, they were on the cross country team. I'm like, well, there's a picture of me behind the tree, just kind of like, oh, maybe one day I'll be there with them. Yeah, exactly. So kind of observing, and then it just kind of built up on that 7th grade, and then 8th grade, and then 9th grade, I was able to join them for the cross country team. And I was honored to make the team. And then, as a brother and sisters, we were able to win the San Diego section and then advance to the state. So kind of build up to be a great journey for all of us.
Oh, so you guys probably ran together. You trained together then. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 12th grader and a sophomore and a freshman, but we didn't know training that much. So whenever the team got together, we ran, but we did not train on our own.
Oh, well, you didn't need to. It's probably good you didn't have to wear your body out at that age. You get to sort of run when you needed to. And it was already winning tournaments and meets for you, I'm sure. What was it like for your brother? You said you have 2 brothers?
I have 2 older brothers, and then I have 3 other brothers, one of 10 brothers and sisters.
So for the brothers that also ran and that were on the team at Roosevelt, I mean, how did it go? Because you became a big star and you went on to UCLA, and, did they go on to college? Were they running for a college? And, how has that been? I mean, I'm kind of curious. I have a sister, and, I know how it went, and I know how amazing my sister is, but it's still success, especially if somebody else is kind of involved, can be tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was great to be with them. And then my oldest brother, Futsum, he ended up going to UC San Diego, and he ran for them. So I started when I was 7th grade. He started when he was like 9, or maybe even sophomore, when he was sophomore in high school. So he didn't have the proper training, and he was more prone to injuries because for some of those other teammates, they've been running for 6 years, 4 years, or whatnot. So when he went to UCSD, he was the 7th man on the team. And then by the end of the season, he was the second, from 7th to 2nd place on the team. So he was very proud of that. And then eventually had an ACL tear playing soccer, and that let that go. And then my middle brother, oldest brother's Futsum, and then Aklilu, he was kind of like, a mentor for me because he was closer in age. And then sometimes we would go for a run if we did for warm up for soccer practice, kind of something like, you can't breathe too hard. If you breathe hard, you're telling your competitors you are tired. So you got to breathe deeper and kind of not make it notice. But training with him was in high school was fun, and be able to, he was the guy and number one guy in the team as a he was a sophomore, I was a freshman. And then he was goofing around a little bit with a bike, riding somebody else's bike, and he fell and hurt his hip. And then I took over. And then after that, I became the number one guy, and he became the number 2 guy, but eventually did the 800, he did really win the 800. And then his passion was soccer, but he did whatever he could to run and to help the team. But they're happy for me. And then my oldest brother and younger brother went to Sydney, Australia on my first Olympic team. My brother goes, because like I said, I didn't know what Olympic was. And for him now, he's graduated college, and then he's in Sydney, Australia at the Olympics. He says, if I knew I had any idea this was the Olympic, I would have kept running. So he did not know the information, but we were all talented, equally talented, or if not, Futsum was actually probably a little bit more talented, but he was more prone to an injury.
So you went to UCLA. What did you go for?
When I went to UCLA, I was under Coach Bob Larson, but it was one of the most diverse schools that I think, public school that was there. And it was the number 1 athletic and academic combination school. So I don't want to be another athlete who never got the diploma. So the pressure for me to get my UCLA degree was huge on me and my family. And even my mom at one point, is because I was running more miles now. I was getting skinnier. So like, you should stop this running thing because, you're getting tired. You should just get a job like your brothers that on the desk. But I said, Mom, it's paying for my education, but I also love it, and then eventually I studied communication with business. And then once I graduated in 1999, became professional and then start competing. And, what a thrill of a lifetime to graduate from UCLA. And I said, now I can give running a full priority, because definitely did not take priority when I was at UCLA. Academics did. And then, I did altitude training and started doing that. And then also going to Sydney, Australia, just to wear the red, white, and blue singlet. It means so much for me, for the country, that gave me opportunities to be the best that I can since I was the age of 12. And it was a kind of pinch yourself, this is a dream come true. So it was a blessing. And I wasn't stayed in the village, and I got the flu that was going around. So I was not in my 100%. And, when you're so fit, you are more prone to get sickness and injured. But I finished 12th. They had a prelim for the 10K, 6.2 mile. There was the prelim for it. I was the second last guy to qualify, and I finished the race 12th place. I was so happy. And my dad was there, my mom was there. My brothers were there. And they're like, my dad is like, this is the dream come true for America. You're going to win tonight, son. I'm like, Dad, I have not broken 28 minutes. The guys that I'm competing against, they're running 26:30. I'm like, I hope I don't get lapped, plus I'm sick. But he was a little bit disappointed. So you got to think positive, but I said, Dad, Haile Gebrselassie from Ethiopia, Paul Turga from Kenya, those guys are a minute and a half faster than I am, but I hope to give my best shot. And I did. I finished 12th. But before I left the stadium, I said, I'm happy to represent our country in the Olympics, but next time around, I hope to make the team and also win a medal for our country. And, in 2004, I had made the 10K team and the marathon, but the marathon is it won the history over me, because of chances of medaling was better in the 10K because I was a national champion, American record holder in the 10K. Whereas in the marathon, this is my 4th marathon. I was the 39th fastest guy in the field. The chances were not pretty, but to be in Athens, Greece, where the Olympics started, where the marathon got its name from, and to be a hot, hilly, and humid, challenging circumstance, I think it's not going to favor world record. So I said, you know what, I got to put my grit down and do the proper training. And we worked hard with Danica, who was the female runner who got bronze medal, and her coach, Coach Joe Vigil, and my coach, Bob Larson. We kind of secluded ourselves in Mammoth Lakes and trained hard, and to be able to go to Athens and be able to, win 2 medals for our country and win a silver medal for me. Where I met my dad the first time in 5 years in Athens, Greece, before going to Italy. To be able to be there and win that medal, it meant so much to me.
Wow. Are your parents still alive?
Fortunately, yes, my parents are still alive, and they're in San Diego, California, where I grew up. They're blessed. We always celebrate October 21st through phone calls, or because that was the rebirth of our family. And when we first came to the United States, I will never forget that day. October 21st, 1987. We're coming up now, and 34 years almost. So it's a blessing, and whenever I get the opportunity to spend time with them, it's always a joyful moment.
Yeah. Do you? I feel like you have intention, you have depth, and you have integrity. I'm wondering, where do you get that from? And is religion or spirituality a part of your life? Was that ever a part of your life?
Oh, absolutely. Greek Orthodox is what I was raised, and be able to just, been an immigrant, and we were not going to church as much because we were location to different locations. Yeah. But I was baptized when I was 40 days old, and be able to just kind of believe in God. And my dad always said, when he was in that journey of 225 miles, he was gunpoint at one point, but the gun never went off. So he says, if God wasn't in my life, that would be the end of it. So he feels that this day, my journey to make that and to survive, there's a higher power in God to allow us the life that we have. And, for us, we're very the fortunate ones that have come out of third world country and make a living for our life, but we're no better than anybody. We just feel very fortunate that God has given us this mercy, this journey in us to be faithful and believers, to be able to be the best that we can. But yeah, it's important to understand where you came from. For me, I go back to Eritrea, and after I did my first marathon in New York in 2002, I went to Eritrea to see for the first time, and kind of remember a little bit when I was 10-year-old, but you kind of forget sometimes where you came from. And when I went back to see that, I was able to relive a little bit, how people were surviving, no electricity, no running water. They got to go,
big difference.
And complaining about my last 40 minutes of the marathon was kind of small scale versus people are from sunrise to sunset, they're working diligently. And for me, it was just 2 hours, 3 hours of hard work, which nobody forced me to do. I enjoy doing it. And it was my profession. So to look back gives you strength to what you could potentially do, because you are grateful for these opportunities. You asked me earlier, in 2008 I had a big mishap, after winning silver medal in Athens, after getting second in New York, 70 days later, and third in Boston. You're like, oh, I'm ready for a win, which marathon I'm going to win, but you don't always get what you think you deserve. And I had a 2008, November of 2007, the trials were in New York City Marathon, where I had made a name for myself. And unfortunately, my good friend Ryan Shea passed away for having cardiac arrest, and I finished 8th in the race. So it was just like, and I learned after the finish that my good friend has passed away. I just kind of went to the ground and couldn't get back up. People lift me up. I couldn't walk. I was on my knees and elbows crawling like a 10-month-old baby, because I don't fall, but eventually 10 weeks later, we realized that I had pelvic stretch fracture. And because when life is taken away from you, injury is the smallest part of that element. And I kind of put two and two together, and I say, you know what? But somehow, some way, you have to move forward when things get challenging and circumstances are hard on you. And I just remember believing and also praying with my wife and my brother. I said, I know what I did in training did not exemplify the results I wanted to hear, because my wife is like, when she saw me on my knees and elbows moving from one place to another in the hotel, she's like, this is not a way to make a living. We have your college degree. I got my college degree. We got to do something else. I said, well, faith, God has something. If God says this is it, I'm okay with it. I have my silver medal to prove it, and I don't have to prove anything else. I'm completely happy. But I knew down deep there was more that I could do. And I said my Olympics will be the New York City Marathon. I can't wait another 4 years, and to be able to just run the New York City Marathon wearing that USA jersey and be able to win it and a personal record time is there's hope. If there's hope and there's faith, amazing things can happen. Don't give up in the moment. Just believe in yourself, believe in your team, and great things are waiting for you.
Do you have a mantra or something that you say to yourself when things are hard?
Yeah, I usually say I pray, but I also say run to win, which means getting the best out of yourself. Sometimes everybody's hurting. When you run 26.2 miles, you're going to struggle at one point or another, but that. So you got to say, okay, the beauty of running is, okay, let's scale back a little bit to, if you're going 9:45 or 9:30 pace, it's okay. Let's go to the 9:50 and get it back, and then we want to go finish at 9:30. You have to have those internal dialogue within yourself and your team. So for me, sometimes I pray. Hey, when I was running the 2012 Olympic Games, I was ready to drop the towel. I was really struggling. I was 37 years old, and I thought it was my last Olympics. I was at 21st place at the halfway mark, and my goal was to win top 3 or personal best, and I none of it was going to happen. So I'm like, you know what? This church looks a good place to drop out. But then I realized, looking down, I said, I have that USA jersey. How many people would love to be in my shoes? And I came positive thinking. I prayed. I said, God, let me get a second group. Get a second group, and then just running with them. He said, maybe I could be one of those guys. And then eventually from 21st place, I'm in 15th, I'm in 10th. And with 5K to go, I was in 6th place. My coach pointed out 6 fingers. I'm like, wow, this is, and you're barely trying to finish. It says you represent your country, keep going. And, amazingly, you don't know what happens. Sometimes people get drug tested and they test positive, not in the moment, but down the road. And I said, I got to get that 4th place. And I remember the Santos, my friend from Brazil, who ran New York. He was with me with a 500 meter to go. I have to pass him. But I said, good job, the Santos. But in my mind, I'm thinking, go past him as fast as you can. And I kind of see the out flag on the left side. So should I grab the flag or should I not? Because he's trying to chase me down. And I grabbed the flag and came in 4th place. So be in the moment and say, run to win, get the best out of yourself. Sometimes, even though you feel giving up, if you're not injured or medically wounded, just stay with it, because positive things, it will teach you more about yourself and how to overcome adversity in those situations, what you can do when things go perfectly, even though sometimes you struggle to the finish line.
That's good advice. Do you have or feel like you have a certain purpose, like an overlying life purpose, a message, something that you want to show people, do, accomplish, have, make peace with? Do you feel a sense of purpose for something specific?
I'm a believer, and obviously God has a purpose for me on this earth, and that purpose is to influence people to run it. And I wish I could say that when I was 7th grade. I wish I could say that when I won 4 NCAA titles or break an American record. But the greatest purpose for me on the earth was on April 21st, 2014, when I ran the Boston Marathon. As you know, I won the Boston Marathon, but a year prior to that, something was taken away from all of us, mentally, physically, and some human being that we could never get back. But I was there. I missed the bombing by 5 minutes because I was watching my fellow runners for 4 hours plus, because I never get this opportunity to do that. I love seeing people run. I enjoy it immensely. And I left because I had an appointment and the bombing happened. And as soon as I got to the Fairmont Copley, which is not too far away, and I remember Bonnie Ford from ESPN.com, she asked me, are you scared to bring your family that same evening, or are you going to come back, or where are you right now? And I remember telling her, I hope to be healthy enough to win it for the people. And I remember saying that afternoon. And for 365 days, you have that conscience you have to live with when you see the Boston Strong, or when you see the Red Sox doing something, or T-shirt or hat and things like that. When you travel around the country, you see that. It's like you're praying. It's like, God help me that day, hopefully to win it. And I remember when the Red Sox put the finish line, the trophy, the World Series at the finish line, I was getting worked on therapy. I remember to my massage therapist saying, I hope to do that win for the Boston on Patriots Day. And so my purpose, to answer your question, did come true, and is to be influential in terms of sports and to be there for our runners and to be able consciously, something my spirit told me to write the victim's name on the bib that I wore the night before. And to be able to just go, it went viral because I wrote Crystal, Sean, Martin, and Ling on my, those are the 4 victims that we lost through the bombing, and the limbs and others mentally, physically that we have lost is irreplaceable. But I feel fortunate enough to be able to tell my story and be able to carry their names and give a little bit of a hope. And that's my purpose, to give a little bit of hope for people to get the best out of themselves.
You've done that through your whole life. I mean, look at where you came from and look at what you've accomplished. Do you, coming back around to the Boston Marathon in particular, all right, like, do you have some final advice for me, for all the runners, really? I mean, this is for anybody who runs marathons, this is applicable, but, something to think about, a mindset, certain things that you've mishapped along the way that learned for yourself when you were younger. I mean, hit me. What do I need to know? What's some good advice?
Marathon is a metaphor for life. Patience is a virtue. And Boston is a test for marathoning. I know you haven't done any other marathons, or for those of you that are doing marathon for the first time, Boston is challenging course, but we get excited. We get a narrow road at the beginning. And I made that mistake my first marathon. I went out fast and kind of said, what did I do that for? So what you want to do is, in the marathon, if you can make it your last mile the fastest, you're going to have a great time. You're going to enjoy it. And the friendship, especially after what we've been through with the pandemic and other things, this is a celebration. 26.2 miles is a celebration. The hard work is done. Now, tapering is the where you kind of run not as much, just kind of be healthy, be mentally, physically, and spiritually in the same page, and say, hey, I'm going to go out there and have fun and have a good time with the people that are running there, because that's the beauty of running. You just enjoy each other, and Bostonians know their sports, with all the sport they have, but on Patriots Day, they understand the big celebration from Hopkinton to Boston is on. So they're going to have a great appreciation. And I think it's wonderful that, we get to run again, and because, there've been, cancellation in the past. So this is, we've been injured or wounded. Now you come alive to it. We don't take anything for granted. Just be able to appreciate it. And, we all have worked hard, but now the celebration becomes, and I want to wish you the best and all the runners, because marathon you should do once in your lifetime. After that, it becomes optional. So I'm so happy for you that that's out of your bucket list, but hopefully we will hook you up into this marathon thing, or have marathons. And it's a great community.
It is. I do feel that because I'm running for charity. So there's a group for the charity, and, there's a bunch of us on a text thread where we send messages back and forth. And then my sister's running it as well as my very good friend, Erin, who I've worked out with for many years. And so, we, the 3 of us, have texted a lot about things. So I think you're right. And the metaphor for life, it's so true. There's so much micro, macro to look at. I was telling my friend when we were running our 16 miles the other day, I said, in our whole training, there's been like peaks and valleys and times where you have something go wrong. And that's just, those were macro for we're going to get to the marathon. And if we don't have something happen within those 26.2 miles that hits a peak or a valley or something like that, and we need each other, I will be shocked. So I think that's an incredible perspective on it. And I think that I know that as far as your purpose goes, you have been living that. You have been living that example of, showing people what is possible and having faith. And I'm grateful for that. So many people are. So thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on just, millions of miles of proving to people what is possible by the human body and spirit.
Thank you so much, Danica. It means a lot. And, running for charity is important, because we've been very fortunate to be in a pedestal or have the big honor and responsibility to do things for others. And for me, I ran for the Team for Kids in New York, and I ran for Martin Richards Foundation, the 8-year-old boy in Boston. And that was a thrill of a lifetime. And, I have my own foundation, the Meb Foundation, that I would like to run sometime. And, I love to have others compete and whatnot. So if you are up for another marathon, I might hit you up on it.
Oh man. Okay. And don't do that to me. I'm so competitive and so like, oh man, you got
Don't worry. You got a personal best waiting for you on October 11th.
Oh, that's a fact. It's by default, but that's true. That is still true. All right. Well, I will say that halves seem like a no big deal, right? Like a half seems like right now after 16 yesterday, yeah, I could probably go out and run 13 miles. Sure. We'll see about that. We'll see about that 26.2. I mean,
You'll be fine. You'll have a great time.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And congratulations on just having an amazing life.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on your wonderful, illustrious career, and keep going. And then to be able to do this in a marathon, welcome to the running community, and looking forward to seeing you on October 11th. I'll be there.
I think we will see you. I think there's some lunch or something I heard about. So I'm going to come over and say hi if that's okay.
Awesome.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.